We're live again, Dallas.
Check 1, 2, 3. Can anyone hear us?
Well, we have nobody in there
Look,
yet.
look, the microphone. You can see the microphone right there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
Is that better?
Can you hear us? Sounds good. Yes. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So welcome back, everybody. Where were we? What were we just talking about?
I don't know. I one of our foundry chickens got stuck in the microphone, and that was the biggest problem. So Tony took his shoes off, and everything started working great again.
All right. Does it sound good? Is the sound better?
Are we 5x5? Does anybody even know what that means?
I have no idea what that means. Cryptocurrency. Let's go, Tony. That sounds an awful lot like Brandon, doesn't it? Okay, hang on. I'm getting texts here.
Penastar says you guys look like two millennials trying to figure out a carburetor. Yeah, that's what it was. It was on vibrate.
Well, according to Kathy, we just lost 3,000 subs. Kathy says we hit 215,000. We hit 215,000, and now they took 3,000 away. So, oh well, easy come, easy go.
Carl Cessna says we're 5x5. That's an old military term for radios.
Let's see, Matt Horvath. How do old-timey windshields get held in? The windshield on my Imperial is smashed, and I'm wondering how to put a new one in. Well, the Chryslers of that era used a gasket that ran around the. There's like a pinch weld, and the gasket saddles over the pinch weld, and it holds the windshield around. I'm pretty sure the Imperials use that same system. What are those?
They're glued in. The older stuff that I've messed with.
The GM stuff.
Yeah, glued in.
It's just glued in. Okay.
But I haven't messed anything older than 63. So.
Earl Hinky, what do you all think about cryptocurrency? I mean, that's really off topic, but you guys keep asking about it. What do you think of cryptocurrency?
I don't like it for the simple fact that once you get a bunch, accumulate a whole bunch, if they just want to shut it down, your shit's gone tomorrow.
That's my problem with it.
I like something tangible.
That's my problem with it. Yeah, I'm a hard asset guy. Has to be a hard asset. Has to be something I can hold in my hands. And I can't hold crypto in my hands. Like, I don't even count the money that I have in the bank as money that's mine. Does that make any sense? Because anything that's in the bank could be lost in a heartbeat. So I don't even count the money that's in the bank as part of my assets.
Oh, Sims Garage, or is it Simmy's Garage? Uncle Tony, I just bought a basket case 65 Barracuda. What are your thoughts on resto modding it, or would you keep it original? It's a slant floor shift auto.
I would keep it original, man. The value of clean, original, functional 1960s cars is just going nuts. I would leave it alone, man. I would leave it alone. You know, if you've got one that's already been it's already been swapped and everything else done to it, then yeah, go ahead, go right ahead. But if yours is, let's say, 90% like original and intact, don't. Just leave it alone, drive it, enjoy it, or sell it to somebody who will. Let's see.
Earl Hickey.
French onion, store gold and gasoline.
Earl Hickey says, Tony, my car makes this weird sound when you get on it. It sounds like, ee! Running too lean?
Well, I mean, it might be a belt squealing, or it might be a clogged exhaust. You know what makes it sound like that? You remember the old double wall exhaust systems?
Oh, when they resonate inside the pipe?
General Motors especially was using them, right? It's a double wall exhaust pipe. It's an inner and an outer. And the inner will sometimes rot and collapse. And you look at the outer, it's perfect. Like, not even rust on it.
But it's falling down on itself.
Yeah,
so
but the inside of it collapses.
The collapse part.
Those used to make the craziest whistling sound.
I just remember Chevrolets always used to be bad if you did like a power brake, they'd squeal really bad, right? Like the belts on them would really squeal. And sometimes they just throw the belts. I don't know why.
Let's see.
D Quad says, "Would you be interested in putting a slant six in a Toyota Starlet?"
No, I think I've had my fill of slant six swaps. I think. I don't know. We'll see what happens as we go. Uncle T, I'm going to adjust valve lash with the engine running. Is it a Chevy? Then by all means, that's pretty much how you would do it. You know, and when I say lash, I mean preload, which are preload. I don't know. There's some people who like to do with the engine running. I think it's just idiotic. Shut the engine, do one cylinder at a time like a gentleman. I don't think you can get an accurate lash adjustment with the engine running. There's just too much stuff going on. Freddie left you. Hey guys, I've got a 350 out of a 1980 Corvette, 2-bolt main. I'm rebuilding it. No signs of spun rod bearings, but the original bearings don't snap into the rod caps. They're loose.
Oh, they got hot.
They got hot. Yeah.
If it's, and you know, all right, I had a motor before where it had one rod that did that, and I put it back together, and that sucker was so tight you couldn't turn it. And I put the rod and the bearing in, and it felt fine. And then you put it in the motor, and it was just like, as soon as you tighten it down, that sucker was out of shape.
Detonation will do that too. If you got a lot of detonation will do that. And it'll peen the top bearing over and
well, I'm wondering if 80 Corvette, right? So height of the smog era. And I bet you if you're rebuilding it, no signs of spun rod bearings, I would take the rods to the machine shop and have them resized just to be safe, on the safe side.
Yeah, I would definitely put a new set of bearings in it. You know, if the bearings snap into place, it's fine, and they don't show a lot of wear. But yeah, man, don't mess with them. Yeah, your plastic gauge is reasonable, and I'm sure your oil clearance is fine. But the rod for the cap for the bearing to be secure, it has to snap. It has to have like a slight interference fit.
It's what they call crush.
Right,
bearing
now,
crush.
You can spread them. Like for instance, when I'm putting an engine together, right? Okay. So when I'm doing upper rod bearings, okay, I'm gonna put a piston rod assembly into an engine. Okay, what I'll do is the bottom shell I'll just snap into the cap normal. The top shell, before I put it into the rod, I'll take it, I put it against my chest, and I'll spread it slightly so that when it goes into the rod, it really squeezes into the rod. And the reason I do that is because as you're tapping the piston down into the hole, sometimes the bearing will fall out.
Yeah.
So I'll spread them a little bit first to give it that little extra spring tension, so that as I'm tapping the piston down into the motor, the bearing doesn't fall out of the cap. But
it's funny how everybody solves these problems differently. Because I use like a 3/8 inch hose,
right,
and I slide it over the rod bolts, and it's big enough it just captures the rod bearing.
You can do that too.
Yeah,
you can do that too.
Simmy's Garage says, "Where's the best place to get floor pans for my 65 Barracuda?" Man, if anybody makes them, it's probably AMD.
I don't think they have early A-body stuff. They have late A-body stuff.
They do, but I don't think they have early stuff like that. I bet you're probably just like me on that 63 Buick Special that needs a floor pan. It's getting a Nova floor pan.
Yeah, I do not think there's early A-body floor pans available anywhere. You'll have to either modify a later one. It's a completely different setup too. But you have to either adapt a later one or just patch out of sheet metal.
I've made patches as well, and to tell you the truth, if you want, you make a small template out of poster board, and if you want to get your contours right, the easiest thing to do is what they used to do, and I haven't seen guys do it in a long time. You ever seen the plastic hammer shaped like a teardrop?
Sure.
And then what you do is you take your piece of metal and you put it on just go buy a sandbag and freaking beat that thing until you get the shape that you want.
Peter Kovac, some guy in India will make a floor pan for you with a hammer and a piece of scrap metal. And that's the truth.
Right. And some tin snips, and he'll have metal all over the floor, and he'll be walking all over it with his bare feet.
They were showing him making carbon fiber brake pads.
Really? For carbon brakes?
Carbon fiber brake pads. And it's the same, like the chickens running around on the floor and like,
Dude, if
right?
these guys can figure it out, I can make them at home. I know I can.
No, you could, right? They show them mixing up the powder by hand, right?
The epoxy.
Not even epoxy, it's just powder, right? They take the old brake shoe, the old backing plates, because none of this stuff is new. Okay?
Right.
They take the old backing plates, they throw them in a 55-gallon drum.
Yeah, burn a lot of stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the guy's got like a simple press, and he puts like 4 brake shoes or pads rather underneath, and there's like a fixture, and then he takes the powdered material, okay, and just mixes it up by hand, right? Scoops it into each of the things, and then he has a press, and it just pulls it down, and it presses. They leave it there for a certain amount of time, and then they bake it. And that's it. That's how they make brake pads. Let's see. Wow, audio is primo. Well, if Doug Narden thinks our audio is primo, I'm satisfied.
I was all over it.
I think we're beyond. Yes. Most old parts. Good evening, Dallas and Tony. He says that's Ron Ward, the Ron Ward. Wheelie King. For anybody who wants to glean some ideas and techniques for floor pan repairs, check out Cold War Motors here on YouTube. Or Scott is a master. Absolutely, Cold War Motors is one of the best old car channels. If you're just into old cars, and one of the best channels on YouTube.
Oh wow. Freddie Left You says they just passed the Sleep Act here in the state of New York. It's $1,000 fine for loud exhaust on bikes or cars. Shops that modify original exhaust lose their license.
Well, that's because you live in New York. Get the hell out of there. It's Jesus.
Man, that's amazing. Somebody actually allowed that to pass.
Super chat. Relco, thank you, sir. Just wanted to publicly express my hate for plastic bed liners and the millions of truck beds have rusted out. Much love, Tony and Dallas. Yes, down with plastic bed liners. Definitely.
Sweet. Well, I did a good job on the audio then. First, I tried dancing and entertaining everyone, and then I was going to switch to sign language to pretty much sign language our entire live stream over to everyone. But then I realized I didn't know sign language, so we had to fix the mic. But there literally is one of our foundry chickens stuck inside. Yeah, jazz hands.
Greg McDonald, people laughing at those India people for making those parts, but how many of us here could actually make some of the stuff there? I am not laughing at the India guys.
I'm laughing at their working conditions.
I have the utmost respect for these people. They are hard working. I mean, like seriously hard working. No, nobody's laughing at them. And it's not even laughing at their techniques. Their techniques are effective and they work. Where the irony of it is, these are parts that we're buying and we're putting in our cars, and we assume that they're made in factories, like a
professional factory,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. With people running around in steel hats and safety glasses, running automated machinery and basically clean floors and things that roll behind them going beep beep beep, that kind of stuff, right? That's what we're picturing. But what it actually is a bunch of barefoot guys with chickens running around making these parts.
It's America in the 1920s,
right? Yeah, exactly. As far as the foreigners, the Indians, the Pakistanis, the Chinese, any of these people who actually make this stuff, I have nothing but the utmost respect for them. They work hard. They work harder than we do. That's for shit sure. It's not the work that they do. It's the materials that they're given. It's the limitations that they're given.
The working conditions.
The working conditions, right? It's horrible. It's not the people. I have the utmost respect and love for these people, man. They are working their asses off and risking their life every day to do it.
Somebody wanted to see the trophy in the back. There you go. It's what was supposed to be the AHRA trophy in 2009. Never came to fruition.
Freddie Left You, $5. Thank you, sir. Most of New York above the city is conservative. I'm not leaving, standing my ground. My shop is here, going to ignore the law. Cool show, great videos. Freddie, I know. Here's the thing, my brother, man. And this is supposed to be a tech oriented show. We talk about other stuff like this on Sunday nights, but you're here now and you're talking about New York now. Here's the thing you got to understand about New York, right? And I'll make this really short because I've done this. I've talked about this a bunch of times on our other lives. New York City had value because it was a port city during the Industrial Revolution when we were trading with Europe. And New York became New York because it's a series of islands and it had more port area than any place else. Okay. In the 1950s and 1960s, trade started to change from Europe to Asia. So now the West Coast took up that role, all right? And in New York was no longer an area of import and manufacture. So in the 1970s and 1980s, they rebranded the city as the financial center of the world, and they pushed it that way, okay? But now with all of the technology we have, that you don't need to maintain these office buildings and all of the expenses that go with them, and people can actually work from home and teleconference and all these other things. New York City has zero value in the real world. It doesn't have a place in the world anymore. It's only running on momentum. So you are dancing on the Titanic, regardless of who's around you, how conservative the people are around you. The city is not needed anymore. So that's your problem. That's what you really got to look at.
Tony Kocher, in your personal opinions, what is the best model of Oldsmobile Cutlass to turn into a drivable hot rod, achievable by the common man's budget, under $25K? What is realistic? What is a dream? All right, a body that like 64 to 72 out the window. You won't be able to touch them for a common man's budget that you would want to have a drivable hot rod.
That's the truth. And replacement parts, everything is a gift from God. There's nothing simple there.
G bodies, they're getting to be expensive. They're getting to be $6, $7, $8 grand. 73 through 77, the Colonnade, right?
Which are my favorite here.
I like
they're beautiful
cars.
Well,
the Cutlass has even had the swivel seats and all that stuff.
They're beautiful cars, but they're becoming very scarce.
They're heavy and they don't have a lot of reproduction parts.
Right.
But
I would go with a G body Cutlass.
You think you would do a G body?
I would do.
If you do with the early G body, they're probably not as expensive as the later ones, because the later ones is what the Gen X's and the millennials are gravitating to, right? But the
a lot of people
early
donks
ones,
out of them. Those are big on the donk people.
Well, 78 to 80 Cutlasses were good looking cars.
Yeah, I would go with a G body. I think for $25,000 budget, I think you could pick up a nice roller for $5 grand, and you spend $20,000 over that $5,000 frame, and you have a really nice car, bro. Let's see. UT building a G body. I'm not building one, but that's what I would recommend him build.
But Joe K, he says, I like the late G bodies, 86, 87. Of course you do. That's what everybody likes. But if you get a 78 through 80, they're considerably cheaper, and they're the same car.
Well, Rider of a Pale Horse says you can buy a mid-80s Corvette at a lower cost than a G body. You can buy a mid-80s Corvette for less than the cost of a shopping cart. But that's not what he asked. He wants a Cutlass. He's specifically looking for a Cutlass.
Why is 73 through 77 Colonnades horrible?
Okay, they had a rust problem in the back. The back frame rails and the back bumper mounts used to rust like crazy on those cars. But I think that's a phenomenon mostly from the Northeast. I think if you find something that isn't from the Rust Belt, you're going to find a solid car there.
I do like the A bodies that everybody loves, that is 64 to 72. But God, are they just ridiculous expensive now? Hey, I didn't look in the shop. Did the GTX make its way out of here?
No, Andy's schedule changed. So he was only able to come down here. He only swapped the valves on the springs on the one side.
And
then he had to go. So he's going to come back not this weekend, but the following weekend, and we'll work on the car and get it out of there.
A.R. Valari Don Jr. says, what's involved in putting W2 heads on an LA 318?
What's involved? Nothing. Just you need
Would-
the intake manifold to go with it.
Would the W2 that's the big valve performance head, right? Will it fit on a 318? Will it clear the bore?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 202 valve, you're gonna for the 202s on the W2 heads, you would have to notch the bore slightly. It actually won't hit. 202, the 202 head on a 318 block will not hit the bore, but it literally touches the bore. Like there's like 2,000ths of an inch. So you would want to clearance the top of the bore to run the 202 valves. But other than that, just intake manifold and the correct valve gear. One of the things you have when you're dealing with W2 heads is that you got to know which valve gear you're using, because they have several different setups for those things. So because what happens, they use a taller valve to get a longer spring, to get more lift. And so the valve gear is completely different, and there are several different generations of them. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you which is which. But when you do your W2 heads, be very aware of the valve train that goes with them.
So there's an interesting amount of banter here going on about the G body and the Colonnade bodies. And one of the guys was saying Grand Prix are like hen's teeth. The Monte Carlo, Cutlass, Regal are everywhere. I'll tell you, the Grand Prix that I always thought was interesting, I never wanted to own one, was the Grand Prix 2+2. Yeah. And then somebody says the Can-Am, Pontiac Can-Am. And I haven't thought about one of those in a long time, but those were very limited production. They're good looking cars. They had the same shaker scoop as a Trans Am did.
Best Colonnade, 73 to 75 Grand Am. I'm going to go with. I do like those cars. I do like those cars. Malibus and Cutlasses are everywhere. Not the way they were. They're getting scooped up.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, you could buy those things for like $100 all day long, every day. They'd all have GAC 305s or 231 Buicks in them. Oh gosh, they were everywhere.
The only thing about those cars, like the Can-Ams and all, they were heavy. Oh my god! Any of those 73 or 73, 74 heavy cars.
Yeah, they're like 4,000 pounds.
The doors are like bank vault doors.
My buddy has an El Camino in that body style, and it's like this guy says, "Hey, you can come up and get these El Camino parts," and we're like, "All right, cool." So we go over there. My buddy grabs a fender, and I'm like, "I'll grab this door."
Grab this door. No, you're nuts on the
Hey,
ground.
you have to get on this end, yeah, because it had power windows and all that stuff, so it was heavy as hell.
Oh man, when I was like 17, 18 years old, man, I was changing the hinge pins on those.
Oh
things.
yeah, could you imagine the abuse those things took?
Those cars were only like 5 years old, 6 years old.
Door
like,
hinge pins just notched to death.
Yeah, exactly.
Doors hanging 3 feet off. Oh.
And it was before they had the kit, because they made a kit where you drill a hole open and you put a bushing in there and you put the new.
Oh, right.
So I used to have to weld them closed and then re-drill them
and then put the new pin.
Help or whatever it was came out with a kit to do that.
One Colonnade door equals one Camry. Yeah, that's damn right.
That's the thing about those cars, man. They are heavy.
I'll tell you, the car that I owned that I really regret ever getting rid of, and it's going to sound goofy, is I had a 78 Buick LeSabre Turbo Coupe. It had a turbo 231 in it. And when I got it, somebody took the 231 out, put a 455 Olds in it.
Yeah.
Well, I took the 455 out and put a 350 Buick in it so I could drive it. And, it had, because it was a turbo coupe, it was geared because the thing wouldn't get out of its own way, I'm assuming, with a 3800 or with a 3.8 and a turbo, carbureted turbo.
They were stones. They were stones.
Oh, man, it ran good, though.
And one of my customers
had a two-door.
One of my customers had a two-door Electra Deuce and a quarter with the turbocharged V6 in it.
Oh, yeah, that's the same car.
It was slow. I mean, like,
booch.
Yeah. You can see the boost gauge had a boost gauge that went like this.
Well, that car was so heavy. I imagine that boost gauge was like, even in park, was moving.
Right? Yeah, it's under boost, and the car still isn't moving,
Tony versus Dallas. Discuss pros and cons of factory leaf spring versus coil spring rear suspension.
Well, I mean, I'm obviously a leaf spring guy. You know what I mean? The problem with coil springs is that you got trailing arms, and the trailing arm geometry is always backwards from what you want from a hot rod, because they're always facing towards infinity. So, yeah, I mean, if you rework them, I don't know, leaf springs are a better deal all the way around. And leaf springs, they twice the lifespan of a coil spring.
Man, I don't know. Those triangulated four links, that's what I like. I like, though they hook good at the track. They hook good.
Studio 70, have you checked out the Z06 Vets LT6 engine? I have not, but I'm going to check that out tonight. When I go home, I'm gonna throw on the tube. I'm gonna put on YouTube, and I'm gonna watch.
Tony, we messed up, man. We forgot to do the paint fender paint deal.
We will. We've both been busy, bro. We've both been busy.
I know.
We got the winter coming. We got like tons of downtime. We'll be able to do all stuff like that.
Seth McFulton says he had a 76 Buick Century that he regrets getting rid of. Mr. Will says, sorry, Dallas, don't want to bash you, but those car recommendations are horrible. I don't know why that's horrible.
Can't always look at how cheap they are. Building a nice hot rod starts with picking the right car, no other way. Oh, I don't know. I built some nice cars out of shit.
Yeah. I can't see how a Colonnade, he wanted to know the cheapest, or not the cheapest, the most cost-effective Cutlass out there. In an early G-body or a Colonnade is the best deal going.
You look at the 70, 76, 77 old Cutlasses, they are absolutely beautiful cars. I was at the National Parts Depot collection down in Florida, and they had one sitting there. It was a 76 Cutlass. The car had like 1,000 original miles on it. And it is just beautiful. The proportioning on those things is just absolutely beautiful. The lines, everything is crisp.
Well, they made 442s out of those all the way up to the end.
But they're extinct now. I mean, they're just extinct. You can't find those cars.
Oh, no. Some of it was, and I grew up in the Midwest, so they were rusted out bad in the early 90s. Most of them were really bad. But that's right. Central Bear says they made Hurstholds too. So and they did have Hurstholds up in those cars as well.
Bruce W. Tony, your friend has that Slant 6 with the Buick turbo setup on it. That's Jim Bennett. I have no idea what he's doing with that car. I was going to go drop in on him today, but I have other things going on. I'm going to drop in on Jim and see what's going on with that thing.
Doug Narden says, still want to see the fruition of the Dallas 215 Buick-powered Opel GT. That thing would be sweet. Sweet, actually, he says. It would be kind of cool. I just got to find an Opel GT. Man, remember I told you about the one probably, 2.5 months ago? There hasn't been another one up there since, an Opel GT. I was really looking for a Cadet. Those are the ones I've wanted. But.
There's one on Veterans Parkway.
A Cadet?
Not a Cadet, a GT.
Really?
Yeah.
On Veterans?
On Veterans. It's
for sale?
I don't know. It's sitting behind the house and in front of a garage, off to the side. Like you could see it clearly from the street as you drive by.
Huh.
I would go knock on the door.
Which side of Veterans? North of the Kroger's or south?
I'm trying to picture Kroger and Veterans.
You just go right down here to the next.
It's between. Oh yeah, no. It's between. It's between Highway 99 and Church Street.
Oh, so it's south.
Scurvy, I have a 76 Oldsmobile Omega X. Body platform doesn't get enough love. Swap out the anemic smog plant and you have yourself a gem. It's a Nova. You have a 76 Nova.
Yep. Or a Buick Apollo or a Skylark, depending on what year. But I really like those cars. They got the front subframes out of a Camaro, right? So everything F-body bolts on them all for the Camaros.
Flat plane vet sounds amazing. I'm going to look into that. Like I said, I heard about it, but I didn't. That's as far as it went. But tonight, when I go home, I'm going to see what they got in the way of videos on that.
Anything with a flat plane crank always sounds really kind of weird.
The Kid can sent 5. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. For you to restore the new bike instead of gunning it. Yeah, I went through the comments real quick before we came online here, and it's like unanimous. Just leave the bike alone. Leave it alone. So yeah, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick it up tomorrow morning, and I'm just gonna get it running. I'm just gonna get it running and
Peter
and
Kovacs
clean it up a little bit.
is really wanting me to do this Opel because he's like 69 two-door cadet wagon on YouTube. It would definitely be cool. I wanted to get a cadet and put the 215 in there. But if I can find a GT, that would be kind of cool too. It would definitely be the poor man's Corvette.
Roadmaster K just arrived from the Sportster video. Ratty Ironheads for the win. I love Ironheads. I just love Ironheads.
Oh, Stephanie Paul says she's got a Buick Apollo GSX. That was the like 73, 74, I think. And after that, they didn't have them anymore.
Matthew Kelly, can I reuse rods if I press them out at home, or should I take them to a professional?
No, you don't have to. If you don't care about the piston,
Yeah, if you don't care about the piston, press them out at home. That's no problem.
you could actually just put them in a vise and hammer that freaking thing down.
Don't do violence. Don't do violence. Take a MAP gas torch, okay? Heat the rod. You know what I mean? Don't go nuts. You don't have to go crazy with it. Just heat the rod. Just get it so that you can't touch it, right? That kind of hot, right? Go just, right? And we could put some spit on your finger, and when the rod sizzles, it's hot enough, okay? And then shove the pin through. Now putting it back together again, the rod has to be significantly hotter than that. I would recommend that you take that to a professional.
Yeah, that you do professional.
Right, because it's easy to overheat them. I just saw a video of somebody pressing rods on, right?
I had a 302 that the machine shop overheated them.
Yeah.
Man, I spun the crap 7,500, $8,000 all day long, spraying it with a bunch of nitrous. And then I took it home. Well, when I took it apart, it actually split the block. So I took it apart. All the rods were blued. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm surprised this sucker didn't come apart. So here's this thing. Like Sid Luscious is saying Magnum's cracked between the valve seats.
Yeah.
Do you know if that's due to heat or stress?
It's both, but most of them are fine. You don't know they're cracked until you take it apart and you look at it and say, "Oh my God, they're cracked." But in the meantime, you drove her for 100,000 miles with those cracks, and it was never any problem.
Right. Well, and see, this is the Buick big port heads. You remember I was using big port heads for stuff.
Uh-huh.
Guys are saying, "Oh, those junk, they crack in between the seats," and it's like same situation, right? Same exact situation. There's no water jacket there. There's nothing there's no oil going to leak out. So what's the problem? Right? Really? Is there a problem? No, I don't think so.
Mr. Will, Tony, do you know why those Disco Novas 75 to 79 had a frame defect that they would start driving crooked? It wasn't a frame defect. It was the way they put the leaf springs together. They used an isolator, so it has like a monoleaf, okay? And they used an isolator pad, right? Like it's sandwiched, and they used like this isolator. And what would happen was that pad would disintegrate, and when that happened, there was nothing to hold the rear end against the locating pin, so it would start to move and stuff like that.
This guy,
not a frame defect.
Danny Boyd brings up, I want a 76 Laguna. You know what? I tell you what, when I was 18 years old, I knew where every car was in the county, right? Every car that was sitting, what it was, and I knew where it was. And there was a Laguna S3 station wagon, 454 4-speed, just sitting and rotting in this guy's front yard, right? And it's like, God damn. I mean, that literally had to be a one-off car. Have you ever seen a Laguna S3 wagon?
No, I bet you he made that. Somebody made that.
I don't. This was like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, but still, I mean,
I guess somebody could have.
Common got a car that needs a front.
It was a big block 4-speed car.
I don't know.
The Laguna S3 is what they used for NASCAR. Isn't that the NASCAR body?
Danny Boyd says that's an early Laguna if it was a wagon. I didn't know there were any wagon Lagunas. Mike Batista says he's a big fan of station wagons, as am I. I think everybody loves the long roofs. Michael Pyland, is there any market for front-wheel drive Daytonas? It's a small market, a really small market.
But they're diehards. They are
Yeah.
diehards.
Yeah, the people who love those cars love those cars. And I'm not saying anything bad of them. I had a bunch of them back in the day. But it's not a big market.
All right. Project Thunderbird. What, this fly is killing me. One bug in the whole building. All right. So Project Thunderbird. Overall, is it better getting forged pistons over cast? I bought forged since the machine shop recommended to get those. They were about the same price as cast. This is going in a 69 Tornado. That's why they were the same price as cast. That's a high compression motor. And your high compression pistons, you're going to pay premium prices for cast or forged.
You're not going to see a functional difference. The forged might actually make a little noise when the engine is cold.
That's what I was actually just going to say. The only difference that you would probably see is when it's cold, they'll knock some.
Yeah. But other than that, no, you're not going to see any functional difference. But then again, if you really want to step on the thing at some point,
I guess if you run it on if that's a high compression motor and you run it on today's fuel, you'll see a big difference because your pistons won't be laying in the pan. Because if they're cast, they don't like detonation like that. That's a high compression motor. You're going to have to put some kind of avgas in it or VP or whatever kind of race fuel and then cut it with some 93. Is the only way you're going to be able to afford to drive that thing.
John Wilburn says, yes, 32 automotive engines. I moved 9 in the last week. That's a lot of engines.
Okay, Chris Greenaway says, Tony and Dallas argument. The beginner car is a 74 through 81 Camaro and Firebird formulas, 350 or 400 Poncho, cheap restoration car if solid, or 25K, have a strong street machine.
What's the argument? What's he even
I
trying
don't
to
know
say?
it. I don't even know what he's trying to say.
I don't even know what he's trying to say.
Maybe he's looking for a Camaro or Firebird formula?
I don't know. Let's see.
What?
I don't know.
What did I just see here? I just really like the 80s Buick Electra wagon. Tony, remember when they put a Grand National 3.8 in one? I think it was in Cars Magazine. Did they do that?
I don't remember.
That would have been badass. That thing would have been a terror.
That was probably before my time. I was at Cars Illustrated from like 85 through like 88. But before then, I don't know what they did. Mike Batista says every Chevelle needs a Laguna nose swap. I would agree with you. That was the best Malaise era nose there was. Those cars were just beautiful.
You're talking about the Laguna front ends?
Yeah.
What do you think of the F-body as a Mopar platform? What's a Mopar F-body? Aspen?
Aspen and Volare. They're good. They don't get much love because they're not part of that image era, the classic muscle car era. But I mean, the FMJ bodies are all fantastic platforms. There's nothing you can do with an earlier A body you can't do with an FMJ, and they drive better. You know, if you're talking about something that you just want like a cool old classic to just tool around in, an F body is definitely a better driver than an A body. Stefan Paul, the Laguna had 2 noses, the custom and the S3. It's the S3 that I'm thinking of.
Don and Wendy English says, I'm turning into a Mopar parts hoarder, even stuff I'll never use. So
you may not use it, but somebody will, and you'll be able to trade or barter it, you know what I mean, or sell it. Can I get one of your menthols?
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let's see.
Rider of a Pale Horse says, I have 2.5 F bodies. Is that, I'm assuming one of them's from the Midwest?
Big Bad Marketer. It's said with aluminum heads, you can raise compression by 1 point. How about an aluminum block over iron? How much can you raise compression with an aluminum block by?
None.
None. It all has to do, honestly, it all has to do with how the exhaust will, the head will dissipate the heat from the exhaust quicker. And that's really what it comes down to. And you don't get that benefit anywhere in the block.
Aussie Bogan Bloke says, "Good day from Australia, mate. I have a Holden Commodore 2003 VY with a 3.8 liter, never late in a 3.8. It's a good motor. Some of those the Holden Commodores came with a supercharger, or a Statesman, maybe.
Let's see.
Chris Greenaway, he says, Dallas, I was rebutting your point on cheap cars that are getting expensive. But 74 through 81 F bodies are 5K all day long. Dude, I don't know what your interpretation of cheap is, but 5K is not cheap. That's like, I don't know. Maybe I have the wrong. I mean, what do you buy stuff for 5K?
No.
You won't touch it, right?
No. I mean, I could have the money literally burning a hole in my pocket, and I'm not going to spend
5K in a car. It better be done and driving and running. Something I don't even have to turn a wrench on. There we go. Super Galaxy Garage is cheap as $800.
There you go. Yeah. I try to buy as close to zero as possible. And it's not because I'm cheap. It's because, I'm cheap. I'm frugal. Tony, when you advanced the timing twice on the Hemi GTX during braking, you said it had little effect on how it was running. Could this be ineffective at having a dual point distributor? No. And I'm going to actually, believe it or not, I was going to do a video on setting up timing for the initial first start. I was actually going to do that today, and I got sidetracked with that motorcycle. So tomorrow I'm going to do the video on that.
Bruce W. I did live in Australia from 2009 to 2008 to 2011. I did like the Commodore. I think that the Aussies had it right because they were still making front motored rear drive stuff all the way through the 2000s till like 2016 or 17, something like that. And then, of course, we had to put the kibosh on that. So we gave them front wheel drive crap and got rid of Holden and got rid of the Ford Falcon.
Uncle Big Bad says Tony is frugal and cheap. Okay, it's not that I'm frugal or cheap. It's that I'm busting on myself. For me, the thing with cars is I like taking something that isn't worth anything, that like is overlooked or is junk. I like the satisfaction for me is taking the least amount of car and turning it into something. So it's like I look at cars that are. I mean, if I want to buy a $20,000 car tomorrow, it's no problem. I go buy a $20,000 car. I look at that and it doesn't do anything for me. I would rather buy the $200 car and make it. Does that make any sense? I have no interest in a finished car, and I have no interest in a nicer car. I like to start with nothing and build it up into something. That's my hobby. So it's like I buy cheap cars just by default. You know what I mean? Because the junk is cheap.
I always got a kick out of making something that never was, right? Like,
well,
I had a Regal I had an 81 Regal in 1990. It was only like 8 years old. The only hot things running around at that time was the Grand National. Nobody had any cool Regals. The Regals weren't cool. The most horsepower one you got was like probably a 305 Chevy. Probably had 145 horse.
Frugal is a compliment. Thank you.
I put a 350 Buick in it, and it was a freaking rocket ship compared to everything else.
Mike Batista, I used to love building a car from a field and building it. Exactly. You know what I mean? That's where the fun is. That's the fun.
Ben Smith is asking, would you consider getting a Gen 1 Daytona or a Dakota for your channel?
No. Too hard to get parts for. Too not worth the effort. See, it's worth the effort to hunt out parts for an earlier car, which on my mind has more charisma, more value, more bang for the buck. It's not worth it with one of those cars.
Your
me.
name can be here for $20. When would you say that Chrysler worked out the kinks of the lean burn system?
Never. They never did.
When it went in the trash.
Right. Wayne, cheap is living in the vehicles that you're working on. We've all done that, man. We've all been there. Francis Antonio, talk about hard to get parts. Try Gen 1 truck. Yeah, geez. Survivor is where it's at. That's what I love about that Sportster. It's such a Survivor.
See, and that's the stuff that, like, Matt S. My first car was a 75 Duster I bought in a wrecking yard for $200. I always look at it like this is a hobby. This is not something I have to do. If I wanted to have something that was reliable, I could just go buy something that's reliable and
Right.
drivable.
Exactly.
But where's the fun in that? Right? I like taking something and building it and making it what I want. I mean, that's kind of the whole project behind it. It's like being a chef, right? And you can go to the store or you can go right down here to Burger King and get a Whopper. But why not make yourself something that's badass for about the same price that you can't get anywhere else?
It's what was that? Mr. Will. Mr. Tony, I can't go there with you. The best are nice low mileage vehicles that take you back to that time, like my 87 442. But I can see your point of view. Okay, if I go back to that time, right, I was surrounded by cars that I dragged out of the junkyard, or bought off the side of somebody's house for $30 and built. Right. So for me to go back to that time, that's exactly how I would go back to that time.
You have a 1960s car.
Yeah. When I was 20 years old, I didn't have any money. You know what I mean? We worked with junk. We got whatever we could and we hammered it together and had fun with these things. So for me to go back, that's how I would go back.
Van Little saying, were you ever into Buick nailheads?
I love them, but
I think they're a sexy motor.
They're beautiful.
They make good torque, but God, are they just not a performance motor?
They were in a day.
Well, yeah, okay, 1950s, yeah.
Yeah.
New City Carpet says, I know of a 73 GS 455 Survivor that runs low 13.
I can believe that. Jody Calhoun says you can live in a car, but you can't drive a house. I've said that 1,000 times. William Sanders got the starter for his Fox body. Going to do it on Sunday. Go, 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 man. Let's see. Charlotte Quillen put an FE and a 70 Torino that never came in them. Yeah. Yes, combinations that and when you make it look factory, that's pretty cool.
That's when it's really cool.
Yeah. Like you did with the Buick in your
in my Suburban?
Yeah.
It's got air on it and cruise control.
Yeah, it looks factory. It's like, that's Brent Taylor, what did you really expect from a media conglomerate with regards to Project X? I didn't expect anything. Who the hell would expect that, right? It's just blatant disregard for everything. It's vile.
Matt Horvath says, I remember reading that drag racers back in the day would swap the valves in the nail head when they put blowers on them, ran the exhaust through the intake valves.
Yes, yeah. I don't know who did that exactly. There wasn't a common thing, but I do know that some people did that. There was a common modification, like okay, I know that IndyCar racing, for that type of racing, I saw a bunch of different versions of that where they used the exhaust for the intake and the intake for the exhaust.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about because the first time I'd ever seen it was on a nail head. And I'm sure it requires a custom ground cam.
Sonny Ray says he lives in his XJ for a while now. That's not a comfortable thing to live in.
That one doesn't have a lot of room.
No. Van Little, why does a high lift cam and small valve equal more torque? Bottom end torque, and it's about velocity.
Port velocity.
John Wilburn says making Project X and Eve, he was a coat hanger abortion level bad idea. You got it, man. You hit it. Let's see. Bruce W. Tony, when will the Jeep be ready for your first off-road event, and when is it? I don't know. I have to pull the transmission out of it. It's got a bad front pump. Bad pump, period.
I thought it was actually working.
It was, and I took it for one little shot off into the woods to play around.
Right.
Pump went.
Really?
Yeah.
The EEP?
The EEP. At first, I thought it was a clogged filter, so I dropped the pan, changed the filter and all of that, and put it back together, and it doesn't make a difference. You start it up, put it in gear, it holds pressure for, I don't know, 30 seconds, then it fades away, get nothing, shut it off, wait 2 seconds, restart it, put it in gear, get the same thing. It goes into gear and then it fades away. So that's screaming pump.
And I just think that making Project X and EV was a bad idea just because it was Project X. It should have just stayed. They could have put it in a million other 57 Chevys. They could have even bought a completely new one from Dynacorn. But no. Take something with heritage. It'd be like this. In my personal opinion, it'd be like Don Garlett's taking Swamp Rat 20 and swapping a fucking EV in it.
But you see, Garlett's messes. He's got an EV dragster.
Right, but he built that EV dragster, and it's built to be an EV dragster. He didn't go back and take something that had lineage.
Right. Exactly. And Garlett's, I think, has the same outlook on EVs that I do. You know, it's not that they're, you know, quote, the future. Is that it's another form of propulsion, and it's fascinating in its own right.
He also likes that it's quiet. If you haven't noticed, he's gone deaf. He's have very hard of hearing, right? I don't know if he's completely deaf or not, but I think, you know, he realizes that the noise that the fuel motors made is a little excessive.
Yeah, it's just right. It's just right. The Kickendall says, Dallas, wifey and I love the shirts we ordered, by the way. Fucking awesome.
Oh, where I didn't even see this.
Right there.
Oh, sweet. Well, I'm glad you like them. Yeah, I shot them out, Monday or something, or maybe last Friday. Well, thanks for buying them. I don't tell you guys that enough. Thanks for supporting us.
Yes,
that's great.
Absolutely. Thanks for supporting everything we do. You have no idea how much we appreciate this.
How big of an engine would it take to find the limits of nitromethane, assuming clutches and tires were perfect?
It's not a matter of big, and you're at the limits. So they've been at the limits now for, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 years. It's not the size.
John S says, why am I burping gear lube out of the vent on the 8 3/4? Was told what temp should the rear end be after normal cruise, wondering if it's getting hot.
I don't know.
I'm assuming if it was getting hot, you would hear it. You would hear the rear end of the car. It would whine really bad, even if it's got a bad bearing or even if it's on the carrier.
Well, I'll tell you what. The only way I could see that happening, John, is if you've got a 49, which is the one that has a crush collar on it, and you've got it too tight. Jack it up, right? Take the drive shaft out of it, right, and see how much effort it takes to turn the yoke. If there's any serious breakaway, like in other words, like you actually got to put effort in it to turn the yoke, then that's too tight. The bearings are getting hot, boiling the oil, and that's the only thing I could think of that would give you that situation.
Yeah, I didn't tell you. Well, I'm gonna have a new channel up like next week sometime.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about oil because we're gonna wrap it up.
I'm not gonna throw any channel names or anything out there because I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. But I am gonna have another channel up. It's just gonna kind of do my off-season, my off-racing season Buick stuff because a lot of people were really interested in the super stock motor. Right. So that way I could put those together and people could check it out while I'm doing them. But I'll let you know next Wednesday because I'll have a name figured out and then I should have an episode or two up by then.
Fubar just put the link up to our merch for shirts and hats and stickers
Yeah,
and
get
all
yourself
of the other stuff that we've got going on there in the
Have you
store.
got a new shirt yet?
We have not got a new shirt yet, but we have stuff coming.
Do you?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
What are you doing? It like is it Uncle Tony's funnels? Like that was the best commercial when you dumped
You
like
like
the
that?
motor oil all over that XJ. Yeah, the funnels was great. Left-handed funnel. Tony and Dallas chat Buick. He already hears enough about Buicks just on the one-day show. Oh man, now everybody's throwing questions at us, and we got literally like 5 minutes left.
I know, but we're gonna wrap it up, and we'll pick this up again next Wednesday or Sunday. You can always pop it on a Sunday night show. So, guys, right? AHRA online, right?
Oh yeah, and you buy something today, and Tony comes to your house and defrosts your freezer, right?
Why would I do that? They're buying merch from you.
Well,
why would I go?
all right,
Come on,
fine.
I'll
do it. I'll do it.
Right. Am I buying it? But yes, I am. Okay. We've brought back the Ask Uncle Tony channel. We actually posted a video on that today. That's one with Uncle Crystal. So and it's an introduction to our other channel, Dogs Eating Cheese, which is Kathy's working on that right now. So
Dogs Eating Cheese. That's really going to be a channel.
Channel, yes.
And it's going to be your dogs.
Not just my dogs, all dogs.
Eating cheese.
Eating cheese.
That's it?
That's the channel, Dogs Eating Cheese. But we posted the first video in a year on the Ask Uncle Tony channel. So you guys can go over there and please, it's right. We got that up.
Somebody saying, Danny Boyd saying box truck videos. You know, I had a great idea. Why don't we put the slang hammer motor in the caravan and then just like do burnouts and stuff with it?
It's really tight to get an engine in and out of that thing. So it's not easy. There's a commitment to take the motor in and out of that thing. Those dogs are going to have bad gas. Like, what else is new, man? Yes, your dog can be a guest on the channel. Of course, John. So, yeah. Tony Couture's dog is lactose intolerant. So that could be a problem. But not for the sake of video. Like, we'll get the good video out of that, and then you'll have to just deal with the repercussions afterwards. Sorry, man. So, yeah. AHRAonline.com, right? His merch, right? UncleTony'sGarage.com, right? Is that it? UncleTony'sGarage.com.
Uncle Tony's Garage.
Yeah, whatever it is. Okay, but that's what we got. We got that stuff. Ask Uncle Tony.
Dogs Eating Cheese.
Dogs Eating Cheese. And I think I said our mods, John, right? Zero, Fubar, right? Ari, I haven't seen Ari tonight, but I'm sure Ari is here in spirit. He's always here in spirit. You guys are always around. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everybody contributed super chat. Thank you. It keeps the wheels turning, it keeps the bills paid. Thank you so much. Everybody who contributed just by being around and tossing some good conversation into the mix. Thank you, right? We have the best car community on YouTube. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I am eternally grateful to all of you guys for that. So that's it. On that note, anything else you want to say?
See you next Wednesday?
He'll see you next Wednesday, and I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll see you on Sunday. So that's it, guys. Thank you all. Good night. And
see you next week.
We're out.